Good evening. Welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Backstage Pass. It's a special night. I think we got a little duplication of the song. I love this song, by the way. Originally, when we picked this up, Vern, I didn't think much of it.
Maybe we'll do a whole show and just play the entire song. We'll just sit and listen to the whole
like
song.
A 3-4 minute
That's a pretty
thing.
good idea.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those. Things you get off of YouTube.
Yeah.
And we dragged this up a couple years ago, if you remember. But it's absolutely grown on me. I think it's called. It's got a name. In the credits, it rolls at the end, and we give credit to the person that wrote it.
You had one song to remember.
I had one job.
One job.
One job, and I screwed that up. Yeah, sounds like me. Good evening. Thanks for being with us this evening. We have a special show this evening. We're lucky enough to have both of the more or less original co-hosts. They've split about in the 100 and something shows, probably done about half each. I don't actually know what the technical numbers are, but this guy fills in all the time, and this guy's here when it's a weird dance, and it works for us. Please welcome this evening the one and only Kyle Thomas, SE to the Stars, rock and roll god. What are you doing, buddy?
Hanging out. Great to see you both.
Yeah, and we got the loudspeaker designer, the legend, the owner of Truth and Audio, one of the best speaker designers, I think, in the world, and I think one of my best friends.
Yeah.
I enjoy him a great deal, and his name is Bernie Broderick, and he's here this evening. Hello, Bernie.
Hey, buddy. This is the first time I think you and I have been together on the show, right?
I think this is true.
Oh, well, unless, no, I mean, I was a guest once. I don't know if he was.
Was that the guest show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an audio show.
Yeah.
And everybody, you should check it out. Bern had some great insights on that one, and showed off some of his really cool work. And we thought we'd bring him back. It's nice to have them both in town and available. And again, dear friends, and both unique perspectives on the thing. We've got an amazing guest for you tonight. He's a super interesting guy. One of our friends call him the tour manager to the gods. I'll explain that more when he comes out of ours. But let's do some housework. We've had some great visitors this week. We've had some great shows going on. It's an interesting world we live in. What's going on, Kyle? Talk to us.
Man, we've been busy. I just want to thank Clint Boire for last week's show.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that gentleman. That was the dude I was out with Brian Wilson. He was mixing front of house. Had an awesome year.
Super cool
really,
guy. Great
really
stories. Pro, absolute pro. We appreciate him coming on. That was great.
Yeah, it was nice of him being up in Saskatchewan, still making it happen with the Wi-Fi reception for us. So.
Oh yeah, he had that crazy backdrop, man. It was actually real. Like he could walk off his deck and be in this giant lake. It was impressive. It was really very nice. Northern country. It's pretty much where everybody's gonna be moving as we all start cooking on the planet. And just keep everybody moving north. That's actually a prediction by the UN because the water needs. And what else you got to tell us, Daddy?
So I've been here this week developing a little bit of curriculum to train people here on just our basic gear, going over labeling, patching, some Dante stuff, some wireless workbench stuff, and some basic console operations. So been having fun with that, setting it up as we're going along.
Yeah,
for these gigs.
It's always good to freshen up the chops. Some people have some real strong broad skills in this area, but maybe a little fine detailing and tuning, and we've been working all those angles. And in some ways, although we have some big shows in the field right now, we actually have a little availability of time too. So, and you're free. You're not on tour. You just got back. So yeah, it works out really good. Thanks.
Yeah, speaking of gigs out right now, I just wanted to give a shout out to Mike Brown, Winston Dalma, Matt Gill, Kyle Laser, and Kyle Slough. I think they're all out at Oxbow River Stage right now up in Napa.
That was very nice of you.
Yeah.
They're out there sweating it.
Dude, that show looks pretty epic right now. I'm very excited for them to get out for a little bit, and they've been doing a good run of show up there, so we just want to give them a shout out really quick.
Yeah, I bet it's 100 degrees. And a ton of people, and
it'll cool off.
Yeah,
you know
of
how
course.
it is up
they're
there.
going into the sweet time right now, where the edge comes off.
Also, I went up to Charles Krug Winery to go see a Parliament Funkadelic show. It was all Blue Note Napa hosted. Some of our guys were up there, so it was nice to check that show out this past weekend as well.
How'd they sound?
Oh, it was great, yeah. End of the run, so everybody was a little, how Parliament is it's always a rotating cast of
Absolutely.
people. But we had some old guests that were on. Sean Hall was there.
Okay.
Yeah, she played for a little bit. Who else was there? There's a couple people.
That's
The name
great.
will come to me.
We had Shauna Hall on the show. She's actually a pretty well-known audio engineer, both studio and live, but also, little known fact, an original member from Four Non Blondes, I believe, and the guitarist occasionally in George Clinton and P-Funk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Good
So,
history.
yeah,
It was
sounds like a fun show.
great seeing her.
She's a nice
Great
girl.
catching up.
Really cool.
Also, Greg Price came by today. He was testing his new Meyer near-field monitors and subs.
That thing sounded pretty great.
Yeah, I could hear. I was over here prepping some stuff, and I could hear it ripping in the other room. Like, holy shit, just
Yeah.
tearing the walls off with those things.
We were going through a range of music with it, and I popped in for 3 minutes, and he just put a few tracks on, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, you know how he is. And my goodness, yeah, some of those. And he had to go into the S6L, so he was putting he was showing me flat and then putting his little magic on it, you know how he does.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a great treat. And he's fresh off of out there with Metallica. He took over for Big Mick, and we always loved to get to spend a little time with him. And so, that was great seeing Greg.
Yeah, it was absolutely
One of our
great
good
seeing
friends.
him.
He's throwing a barbecue here next Tuesday. Him and Brad Maddox and Diablo Digital for the crew in general, for all the people that work here.
That's right. It'll be nice to
They're
see them
my
both.
brother, of course, the general manager, George Edwards, for Sound Image Productions. And we're having a little shindig in between restoring shows and getting ready for the next stuff for next week.
Oh, and that reminds me, we want to give a shout out to Loving Hands for Stagehand.
Yeah.
That was John Del Rio and George Edwards that started it originally.
And I think Bob Powers.
Bob Powers.
Yeah,
as well.
badass
Can't
rigger
forget Bob.
from
We
the
love
Stars.
Bob.
Yeah. I don't know. You cannot forget Bob. Bob would make that impossible. I would not like it. No, Bob is a great man. And Loving Hands is a great page on Facebook. Go check it out. It's got a lot of cool resources on it.
That was our week, man. We've been staying pretty busy. Like you said, we've been busy, but also have some downtime to do this training. So bouncing back and forth and keeping it going while I'm around.
We always try to use the downtime productively. It makes the boss happy, so that's the name of the game. And of course, we have the wonderful, I forgot to mention that I am Vince Edwards from Sound Image Productions. You may know me from there. Or a couple closed roadie groups we have on Facebook, one called Death by Loadout, another one called The Backstage Pass. I am here with my good friends, and we came on a little late. Please apologize for that. We had some technical difficulties. We're getting it going on. It's the one and only, the great Bernie Broderick. How are you, baby?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm living the dream.
On fire.
I'm looking at something real pretty right now. Now, we have talked about this little guy here before. I got one of the very early ones.
First 12.
It was the second one.
Yeah, it was the first group.
I want to feel like it was the first one.
Yeah, we could say that. We could say that.
But I'm
we
in
could
a
say
cat fight with your chick.
Yeah. Yeah. She's watching right now, so so I'm dead.
So I have the only black one, but it's one of my most treasured possessions. I absolutely love it when I'm in my office and I'm like doing the stuff that I don't love necessarily as much.
Yeah.
Typing and sending emails. I can have it in my face with crazy, incredible sound reproduction, and I listen to some very wild and weird shit.
You do.
You know this. Everybody knows this. There's pretty much music always going on here. And we take and run the gamut. But that thing has the ability. I could be listening to some shit from the 60s, from the first edition, to some crazy, to Rush, to some really avant shit, to some 70s singer-songwriters, and this thing makes it just perfect every time. What is the trick and the magic you put into that little box, buddy?
Well, I have a lot of technical background, so system measurement, alignment, things like that. I implemented some of that, but ultimately it took about, 100 hours of listening and tweaking to get it to where I wanted it, and that was the whole reason. Was because, most of these Bluetooth loudspeakers, for anybody who's seeing this for the first time, Kiri, they tend to sound good for one style of music, they're kind of, monotone in that regard.
I always feel they're passable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. It doesn't make anything sound really crappy, but it tends to lean towards more modern, EDM type music and things like that, pop music, that type of stuff. And of course, me being old school, I wanted to play my old music. I wanted to play Zeppelin and AC/DC and and all this kind of stuff and stuff from the 80s too. And I didn't want it to be hyped. I wanted it to sound like, I remember listening to it on the record player, on the CD or whatever. And measurement alone couldn't accomplish that. Like I could get all the subtleties of nuance of the curve, look good on paper, but I couldn't get this kind of cross pollination of all these different styles of music, and it really took literally 100+ hours of tweaking. A little tiny thing here, a little tiny thing there, a little tiny thing here. Give and take, give and take, give and take, give and take, until I could play Shania Twain, and I could play Led Zeppelin, and I could play Skrillex, and I could play, just about anything, and everything was coming up completely fine for me.
Full range and sweet.
Yeah. So once again, the human element is the difference. Like that's where the rubber meets the road. I've seen so many flat responses. I've seen so many people tune. I've seen so many people. I've done enough of it myself. It just doesn't surpass what you can do with your ears if you spend the time. I mean, of course, there's the technical things, alignment and things like that, which obviously computers and stuff make a huge difference. But when it comes to the nuances of the way something sounds, we're dirty people. We're dirty organisms. We're dirty. We're made from dirt. We'll go back to dirt. Nothing should be that clinical when it comes to things like that. Paintings, clinical paintings, it doesn't make any sense. Clinical songwriting, clinical anything, I think we lose our taste for it really fast. We get all turned on when things are not perfect and things are kind of tossed up, and it's the human influence is what we're always after, the dash of human influence. So that's that's why you can listen to so much music and different styles, and everything seems to balance.
Well, I'm also very strange, and that's kind of my life is music, and I just love a lot of different music.
You do?
I do, and every day is kind of a music theme here,
Yeah.
And it can go from the spectrum.
Rocky Horror Picture Show to the Fix to
Discharge and Dio.
Flip it right over.
Yeah, the Bad Brains. I mean, it can be really to Sade.
I'm the same. I mean, I bias myself mostly.
Katie Lang once in a while, and then some Jellyfish. I'm just, I'm sorry.
I like the Propeller Heads, and
I always hear this stuff coming out of your shed.
It's all over the place, and I think that's good for what it is that I do, because obviously you can't build something for the masses if you're working in a bubble. Right?
Yeah.
And since I build speakers, I can't build speakers in a bubble. I have to embrace all styles of music. I have to embrace everything, and I listen to hundreds of different types of material.
Yeah, and to your credit, and the design and in the replication and what it can do, it's a great little product. And I know you make those, and I know a batch of us have bought of them. The Dirk Schieberts and Greg Prices of people I don't think that would mind the Ferret and everybody, all these kind of guys that should know what things sound like. And you've gotten almost, I would say, unanimous praise for the accomplishment. It looks great.
It's a Bluetooth speaker for the pros. That's what it is.
It's a slightly expensive.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's handmade.
Everything's relative.
Yeah, totally. And it comes in its own special packaging. And so if you're interested, Bernie makes these things by the dozen, but one at a time.
Yeah.
And they're very special, and they're available.
Yeah, go to truthandaudio.com.
That's right.
And we have Shopify and stuff on there. And if you want to place an order, of course, it goes into a queue because I make everything.
Yep.
So it takes some time to get it done. But that when the speaker arrives, it was built specifically with your name on it. Yeah. It didn't come out of a box from China. And it'll probably outlive you. So you're going to have to pass it on to your kids.
It's got some interesting attributes between the battery setup and the thing can go forever. I actually don't think I've ran mine out yet. I was just out of worry, charge it up after about 24 hours.
Yeah, it'll go about 24 to 27 hours continuous at running about 75% volume.
Yeah. So I can testify, the JBL. the competitors to that, I'm not sure there is one, but the lower end guys, that's not even a quarter of their battery.
But I mean, they're
interesting things going on with.
They're cheaper, but it's all it's all in what you want. I mean, it's all in what you want. A lot of people are totally happy to go to Best Buy or Amazon and drop $150, $200 or whatever and just get something something to throw around, but I wanted to make something that was going to become a personal item and be special for you to listen to music.
Yeah.
Your own music, you know?
Pulled it off.
Yeah.
Pulled it off.
Thank you, brother.
Like you said, there was a lot of hours. I saw you tinkering away for him. I know exactly what went into that.
Yeah.
So, it's a great outcome, and I love mine. And I think Kyle's got one.
Kyle's got one, yeah.
And Gregory's got one.
Mike
Greg
Brown's got one.
Yeah.
Dirk Schubert has like 24 of them.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Freaking dude, man.
Yeah.
He's only Dirk Schubert. That's
Well,
not really anybody.
He gives them out to his super important clients. That's you know, he's got his logo engraved on the top and stuff. I mean, what a killer gift in the music industry to give to somebody.
Yeah, that's Dirk Schubert level class.
That's Dirk Schubert level, yeah.
Yeah, he's you know, a legend there.
Yeah.
All right, I got a guest who's been so friggin' patient. I should send him flowers and cake and a whole bunch of stuff. Let me talk to
listen to you guys talk anyways. That's fine.
You've been so good. I swear to God.
You've heard your story before.
Yeah, and he knows the story. He knows it, but you can still share it with us. But we're very curious. Listen, guys, this evening, thank you for being patient. We got a late start. It was also our guest has been extraordinarily patient, and my crew is working their little butts off and doing well. There's a lot of technology we bring together to do this thing, and we're doing our very best. So thank you for being patient with us. This evening, a mutual friend, when they heard I was having Jim on tonight, he said, "Oh, you're having a tour manager to the gods." I thought for a minute on that, and knowing his resume, and this is a guy that pretty much stays busy year after year, 2, 3 tours. He's a go-to guy. You know, many of us we'll be mixed guys, we'll be tour managers, we'll be stage managers. We'll have we'll be PMs. We'll have lots of initials next door.
Right.
This guy does 2 things. And he's like the guy you call when you need it to go right. It's just like
Because I don't know anything else. That's
yeah. Like you can't, but when you're good at something, man, you just do that and kick ass at it. Currently, he's out with Demi Lovato and My Morning Jacket, or at least certainly recently. Historically, he's worked with the Black Keys and Imagine Dragons and Usher, and the list is so long. I want to talk to him about Mark Lanigan. He was a special guy to me.
Yeah.
This is one of the, again, tour managers to some of the biggest bands. If you need your show to go right, you want your band to come out happy. All the things to pop off on the contract to go the way they're supposed to. I would suggest you call Jim Runge, and he's with us tonight, and he's going to share our experiences. Jim, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Glad to finally be here.
Oh man, we tried to have you on before. We had some. I don't remember exactly, but it was a thing where you were gracious, and we appreciate that you gave us another shot at it, my friend. So thank you so much.
No worries.
Jim, help me. I don't want to muck it up, because the delineation between production manager, stage manager, tour manager, band manager. There's, and historically there's been a little. What are the delineation? What are the true differences? Now, I know a tour manager is very responsible for many things. Is there a way that you could articulate to the audience, the people watching, what a tour manager does, how you see what your responsibilities as a tour manager says, people like Shakira and Imagine Dragons?
Well, it's different depending on the act you're with. I mean, like in some acts that, as you know, that is the same thing. It's like the tour manager does front of house, tour manager. I mean, that's the most common delineation. Sometimes you have a tour accountant, your tour accounting. Sometimes it really, and sometimes when you have a big production manager, tour accounting is just a baby, or tour manager is just a babysitter. I mean, it all depends on the act and what you're doing these days. In fact, I mean, a lot of production managers run the world, and the tour manager, even though he's got manager in his name, and his tour managers, they're just there to babysit a party, which I'm not saying isn't difficult and isn't a hard job, but it's so every tour it's different. But in general, on most tours, he would be the guy who would do the business stuff, who would take care of. I always say, like, I handle the backstage. The production manager handles the stage, and in the show, the tour manager handles the business side of things in the backstage. Everything for downstage or downstage. Yeah,
I've always thought your job was in many ways harder. I know back in the early days, so often now we're asked as professionals, particularly in the touring industry, but I think in any really work realm, is the people that are paying always want more for less. So they're going to try to have your tour manager also be your production manager, maybe jump out front of house, or maybe throw down on the monitors, and it's good to be multifaceted. It's a tricky one. I do know exactly what you're talking about, but I also always thought about it, somebody more out with the gear, or often tuning guitars and so on in my early career. that your job was much harder, because back in the day we used to have to collect, and we used to have to set up deals and trucking and sub vendors, and there was times we'd have to go out in the alley and box to get paid. So I always thought tuning the guitars was way easier than dealing with that side of it. So mad respect to you, my friend, because I want people to understand what you get up to sometimes, and you do this with.
I started in those days too, because I started with a legal pad and a pager, running to the stopping at the truck stop, and running. Tour manager gets the first payphone and pulling out your 14-digit calling card to long distance calling card.
AT&T calling cards. That's right.
It's busy, damn it.
You have to figure out who was on the page, because they just sent their number, so you had to figure out before you called and got in a long conversation. You had to figure out who was paging you. And
oh man, what a pain in the ass! Oh my God, we had codes, people. Pager etiquette. Oh my God, what the hell's wrong? How'd you get your start, buddy? Like what brought you to the game, and specifically to tour managing? Did you was it more circuitous? You
I started in lighting. I started working at a production company. I don't know if you guys know Pat Whalen at all. I think he's in LA now, but he had a production company in Minneapolis called Backstage Productions, and
it was kind of a thing for sure.
It was amazing basic lighting, but we owned a small audio rig, and this was like pre-moving lights. It was par cans in the early mid '90s, and I started with him, and I got a call from a Austin, Texas artist, Jimmy Dale Gilmore, who was my first act, and I was doing lights for him, so I just did a tour doing lights. And I think you've had Eric Frankhauser on here before, have you not? Or he's
Frankhauser, I don't think we have.
I don't think so.
No, not yet, buddy.
He's Wilco's tour manager and Lucinda Williams' tour manager, and he was my first tour manager. He was the one who trained me, and he got the tour for the Eels, and he wanted somebody to take over Jimmy Dale Gilmore, and I've just been doing lights. So he said, "You want it?" And I knew nothing about tour managing and knew nothing about that world, but I knew that I wanted to tour. Yeah. So I took it over, van and trailer, and it went from there. Eric eventually went to run the Zach Theater in Austin and kind of retired for about 10 years, and I took over the Eels for him and some of his other tours, and just kind of went from there.
Wow. That's a great starting story. Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, at some point you just say, yes, I can do that. And then
figure out how to do it later.
Well,
I'm still faking it. 25 years later, I'm still faking it.
And you go home and like, man, I got away with another one. We did it again. Exactly. We fooled him again. Yeah, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to that. I was looking at your thing, and I mentioned earlier in the mix that you were out with Demi Lovato this year. And, that's an artist that's really, if you've watched her career evolve, she's really, from one thing to another, has really had a very interesting trajectory. What's it like out there in modern day Demi Lovato world? I know that those are probably pretty big shows with a very specific fan base. How's them doing that gig?
It was great. I actually left the tour this week due to health reasons. My health isn't bad. I had a stroke 2 years ago, and I was not feeling well, and went to the doctor this week, and he thinks I might have Parkinson's disease, so I'm getting tested for that. So I'm kind of off the road for a little bit, but I'm looking for something a little bit easier. But the Demi world is great. I'm going to miss it. They're leaving. I just flew back last week from them. I love them. Demi's going to be great. She's doing an underplays tour, and yeah, it's great. I miss everyone. It was a great crew and a great band. We had Nita Strauss. She's got Nita Strauss on guitar from Alice Cooper's band now.
She shreds. Yeah.
So she's amazing and a great human being. So it's the Demi world is great, and I'm going to miss it for sure.
I always like that about those types of acts where they can have in their band, when they get their bands together, they the Justin Bieber band, for example. Those are some badasses back there. Because they can get the hired guns from the top of the list, and just come out and one, those one take motherfuckers. Yeah. It's always fun to watch the kind of I don't know what the poppy bubblegum, whatever that lane is. I've always been fascinated in the bands because they always shred. Madonna's
Demi's
band.
changing it up because now Demi's doing the emo punk thing. Like she's kind of, she's outspoken and speaks her mind, which is great. Now she's, doing that again with this new band and back to her kind of origins, doing the emo punk thing, which is pretty cool.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I did. Again, that's kind of what I was alluding to. Yeah, her evolution has been, it's been a wide arc, from her, because she came up, I think, in the Disney world. I could be wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
Disney, that school, that's kind kind of post Britney
Jonas
Spears,
Brothers. She was part of that Jonas Brothers Disney World.
There you go. And that's a star factory, man. You just look at some of the people that have come out of that thing. Love them or hate them. Britney, Christina, Justin.
Yeah.
I mean, that list is strong.
They worked hard.
They worked very hard. And they are never come out. I'll give them to their credit, to every one of those, Justin, particularly Justin and Timberlake. When they come out, their bands smoke. Like they're good productions. It's something to see. It's a lot of people are employed. They're largely good things.
Yeah, well, management doesn't want any question on the backup. No question.
They've gotten burned by that before, track artists and stuff. Yeah. But, a lot of artists would come out and be open about it because they're just up there dancing. It's just them. So it depends if you're doing a Backstreet Boy thing or what's going on. So
the guy who did it best was David Lee Roth. Talk about a ripper of a band. It's like, okay, I'm out of Van Halen, but watch my second act.
Totally.
I gotta ask this, Jimmy, about. Well, first of all, Jim, I'm sorry to hear that you're not feeling well recently and that you left the tour. That's happened to the best of us, but it sounds like you might be having some more unique challenges going forward. And I want you to know, man, seriously, brother to brother, I feel that. And as a man of a certain age and suffering from a couple certain maladies, I get you. And I want you to know that the crew of Sound Image and the people here at Beyond the Backstage Pass are sweet. Like, dude, we're here for you. If we can support you in any way.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Please let us know, man. I hope that you get a good outcome.
Yet, but I haven't been diagnosed yet. I have meetings with neurologists, but my doctor and everything that says seems to point in that direction. So, I'm taking it as a grain of salt. I'm not going to quit touring until I have to. It's my life. It's what I do. So I'm just going to find something that suits what I need and what I can handle physically and mentally, and just do that.
Well, I think if anybody could call the ball, as they say it in the Air Force, means make a call for their own decision, and a guy who's earned the right to it, you, my friend. You certainly have worked with some of the best, and your reputation speaks for itself. And of course, we hope for a positive diagnosis. And I got to add this in, not to be stuck here, but I don't want to be trite. You are living in a time of miracles, my friend. There's certain science and technologies and an understanding of the periodic table and on that depending, got love for you, man. Fingers crossed. Let me ask you about working with My Morning Jacket. That is a sweet, but those guys kick some ass when they're bringing it in.
I just worked with them recently. I took over for 5-1, Dave Norman. I did a week with them where he had something else going, but I had known Patrick Callahan had done the drummer as an old friend. He had done some stuff I did with Dr. John and Dan Auerbach from the Black Keys.
Oh, very cool.
And he had drummed on that. So Patrick and I go way back, like 15 years, and we'd always kind of wanted to work together, and I always done it in 5-1. Just had to take a break, and it was it was one of the best weeks of my life. We had such a great time, and it was like being on vacation with your friends. And I had done Wilco with Dylan on the Bob Dylan tour, on the Americana tour.
Oh yeah.
So we did like 3 months of the whole summer doing minor league baseball fields. So
very fun.
I got to know the guys pretty well from that. So it was great seeing them after like 6-7 years of not seeing them, and it was hanging out with my friends. And great guys. Really a good time.
It's always been interesting to me. I'm going to go see somebody tomorrow night on my way down to my chick's house. I'm going to stop in a Shoreline Amphitheater and see an artist that's in there, but not because of the artist, because whatever, because of the guy doing the blinky blinky. He's doing the lights. So I'm just going to peek in because my friend's coming through town. You know what I mean? So I make the stop in it. And it's always funny. It could be 4 months or 4 years or 14 years. And it's always pretty quickly with us. We're back on track. And I've always loved that about our profession. And
that's what the great thing about this industry. It's the people. It's like that. I think that's what we missed with being shut down for 2 years. Is not having losing those relationships, and there are certain things that kind of we took over. Like I did TM 101 and the Clubhouse, and there's things like that kind of brought us together and helped kind of keep everybody talking. But it's nothing like being on the road and running into somebody in a hotel lobby or hotel bar, and or out in bus parking somewhere and seeing another bus there and seeing your buddies walk off. That's one of the greatest things about this job. That we're all shaking our head here right now. Kyle was just relaying a story about an interesting coincidence in Vegas, and I've had them all over the country, and I know we can all kind of relate to that, and that is the fun part. One of the fun parts, one of the many fun parts. Working with Shakira as a road manager, Shakira, well, she's actually having some trouble right now because she's got some issues with her legal issues with paying her taxes. This is a wide problem in rock and roll. Ellen had this, Willie had this, many people. But man, talk about someone who brings the big show. Shakira don't play, man. She's in the studio for 3 months working out the whole thing. What was that like, brother? Yeah, that was good. I was actually working on that with Marty Hom. So I was working. Marty brought me in to just do the U.S. part of that. I think it was 6 to 10 weeks. It was one of the highlights of my career. It was great. One, working with Marty and his people was great, and I was part of part of my job was just to personal security with her team, and getting her, advancing her hotels and it was great. It was a highlight. Those show. I mean, that's not normally my style of music, but she, as you said, she brings it.
Yeah, she's super entertaining.
An amazing, high energy show. We had, a side stage that she had to sneak off to, and it was pretty amazing.
Lots of costume change, a lot of production, super high energy, like you said. That's some cucaracha.
I was fortunate many years ago to do a show where she was like an opening act. Like it was one of her very first, her first album, or big album or whatever had not even come out yet. Yeah. And so, it's really interesting to see the progression, right?
It's a total.
Absolutely.
No, I think, at a certain point, because she's an international star. She's not Britney Spears, even though Britney's got massive international appeal. She does it in a much bigger way. Shakira rolls, and she owns South America outright. That's her. She's Colombian, I believe. Yeah. And this is a whole different level of marketing. And by the way, if you're paying attention, if you look at the way that modern music works in the packaging of it, the video part, they're particularly in Latin American music, there's a large visual part of it. It's a big part of the package. There's a big part of the dancing, the physicality, the sexuality. This is cultural stuff. Yeah. And in a way, she's made it kind of, because she sings routinely in many of her songs in Espanol. She keeps it pretty authentic. But she's been able to do that very tricky maneuver, which is cross the boundaries of language and borders, and do it very.
There's not many artists that have done that. I mean,
that's right.
Iglesias family, Ricky Martin. There's probably only a Pitbull
handful.
But there's not a lot of people have been to that, especially to that level, to stadiums and arenas.
That's right. Yeah, and again, big, wonderful show. If you don't mind reaching back for a second. Well, first of all, you name dropped something. So I'm amazed. I'm very proud of myself. I remember this. You said Dr. John. Now working. This is Dr. John, man. that is like legendary American god music guy. What was it like working with Dr. John? I mean, Dr. John.
It was a thing, and for me, it was because I had done. Ricky Lee Jones 20 years ago, and she was she moved to New Orleans, and kind of Dr. John was one of her mentors. So I came in hearing a lot of stories about him and her, and her hanging out with him in the in the quarter and in New Orleans, and he was great. I mean, he was older, but Dan Auerbach had produced a record with him, and we had done Bonnaroo. The Bonnaroo had done a special The guy, I mean, because I believe the Bonnaroo, the whole Bonnaroo name comes from a song of his, so he's kind of like the guy. And he had done a special thing with Dan Auerbach, had brought this band together, and I think Dan Auerbach won a Grammy for producing that record.
That would not surprise me one bit. That guy is prolific. The Black Keys guy we're talking about, he's extraordinary. Yeah, and he's got a great studio in the South that's like crazy. Yeah, and so he, so we got to do that special thing. We did the Grammys with him, with the Black Keys, and then we also did we did a week at the Bronx School of Music, or Brooklyn School of Music. We did they have a big theater there, and we did a week-long residency with Dr. John too. So I got to work with like 3 different times within a year, which was pretty exciting. That's beyond any side. That's special. You know, there's moments, it's like working with Dean Martin or, Frank Sinatra. There's just certain guys, and I'm going to say it, Dr. John is in that group. He knew all that. Like, there wouldn't be friggin' New Orleans music without a band. At least it's the white people understand it. And JJ, legend, absolute legend. What a wonderful thing to have in here.
It's funny you bring up the Black Keys. That was like...
That guy is sick. Those 2 guys,
That was my first concert I ever went to. I used to go to the Minnesota State Fair.
Yeah.
And I've been to concerts before that, right? Okay. But it was like the first one where I'd like walked up to the stage. And I think it was right when Thick Freakness came out. And I like got to talk to the dude for a little bit, and that kind of solidified my whole thing of like. Yeah,
that's a punk rock thing. That's what made me love punk rock, is we could roll right up on our people, Jello Biafra, and just hang out with them. There was no, it was no thing. You could hang out with HR from Bad Brains, and it was like, or Henry Rollins from Black Flag. It was like a thing.
HR slept on my floor.
Yeah, right.
HR slept on my floor.
See, dude, HR is like that too. To this day, he still rolls like that. I think he might be.
So did Dave Grohl.
Yeah, Dave absolutely. Dave, when he was with, he's talking about when he was with the band called Scream. And Scream, actually, I lost my first tooth. Scream, before Dave Grohl was their drummer, a guy called Kent was their drummer, and they played him on living room. Remember Kent? That guy was a great fucking drummer. He always wore that beret. And I love this band, and they had played a show, and then we came back to my house, and we had this like after party in my house, and they played it in the kitchen, and I got in this fight and lost a fucking tooth. And no, that's
should have seen the other guy.
That's like, fucking A. That's old school punk rock shit right there. I want to reach back a little bit. I know you do some tour consulting and consulting with bands, and I know back in the day you did some of that with Mark Lanigan. Now there's 2 questions in that, because Mark Lanigan, so that's Screaming Trees and Queens of the Stone Age, and has just his own thing. He's a fucking, I don't even know how to explain that guy. And unfortunately,
one of my favorite singers.
We were listening to Screaming Trees on the way in from lunch today, and just coincidentally, and he passed recently.
Oh wow!
Just died way too
about a year
soon.
ago, I think.
Yeah, and that's recent for me. For his age, he should be with us still. And it's just one of those shadow guys that just trying to keep him alive is hard as hell. What was it like working with the great Mark Lanigan? Just really legendary.
It's interesting because I had worked with his management company for a while with different artists, with Ricky Lee Jones and the Eels and a few other artists, and he had going out. They had a tour manager who hadn't really worked as a tour manager in Europe before, right? Or hadn't worked. He was a UK guy, but hadn't really tour managed before. So I kind of like trained him, and we talked every day, and we went through everything. So I had one phone call with Mark, and that was it. And then they went on the road, and it was like not in Mark's best days. So they had some. It's when what's his name from Queens of the Stone Age was in his solo band. It was Josh.
Mm-hmm.
And they beat up a bus driver or something, and they ended up having to follow in a rental car that we had to arrange because the bus driver wouldn't let him on the bus. But that was the Bubblegum record, which is still one of my all-time favorite records of his. That Bubblegum record is like amazing.
That
was a record. And then I finally got to meet Mark when Dave, the Afghan Wigs are good friends of mine, and obviously Dave, Mark did the Twilight Singers with and Gutter Twins with Greg Dooley, and I went to New Orleans to their guitar player Dave, who's since passed, but they were doing a benefit show for him at a theater in New Orleans, and I flew out with my travel agent to hang out for the weekend and see the shows, and Mark played the show with the solo band for that, and and I finally got to meet him and talk to him, and he was great. He was doing well at that point. That was like probably 8-9 years ago. He was doing great then, but what a one of my favorite singers of all times. And all of his records were amazing. Like Screaming Trees stand on their own, but all his solo stuff to me is even better as far as I'm concerned. Not a bad record.
The stuff I thought his best came out when he would get with Dave and Josh and get in the desert sessions, go out to Casaluna and be out there in that desolate, wasteland and that very special space, and some beautiful, crazy music. What I want to say, 3 songs with Queens of the Stone Age, the whole desert sessions. There's man. It's always sad when these people die, but God darn it, they left us so. Taylor Hawkins. They just announced Taylor's tribute shows are coming up. They're going to do one in Europe at Wembley, of course, with the Brian Mays of the world and those folks that the European artists that touched that Taylor touched their life. And then they're going to do one at the Kia Forum in LA a couple weeks later. And Mark Lanigan for me, and so we have 9 or 10 or even more albums that Taylor's left that we can go visit and we can listen to him and is there for us. If I feel that way, like with Neil Peart a lot of the times right now. But also Mark is one of those guys. It's one of those, like I said, just coming in, we were listening to Screaming Trees, and I was in a car with 4 people or so, and I didn't think they knew who was playing, and the kind of. So I had to give him a rock and roll moment, a little 101, and say, oh, this is this guy, and he did these things. But particularly for me, I always appreciated him most in the Trees and what he did with Queens. He really added a very specific flavor that made them the unique band that they are. I want to make a statement out there. I don't even have a question for this. It's just a statement of facts. You've been nominated for many awards, dudes, many awards. Polestar Road Warrior of the Year, 2013, 15. 16, 18, TourLink Tour Manager of the Year 2012, 2014, 15, 16, and you won Polestar in 2013, and you won TourLink in 2014. This is your peers. This is like what the Oscars are. This is when all the other actors get together and go, we're pretty goddamn good at this, but that guy this year freaking kicked ass. That's got to mean something to you, brother. It's like the Parnellis or some of the cool ones out there, and those are the real ones you got, buddy.
Yeah, I'm humbled by it. I don't think I deserve anything over anybody else, but a lot of people say like, well, it's a popularity contest, and I said, what's so bad about being popular? Like, if your peers like you and your friends like you, like, and they're choosing you to because they, whether they know what job you do or they just like hanging out with you or think you're a nice guy because. You've come to their hotel and they like you, or you came to town with their band and you were an easy guy to work with. I'm not going to say no to that. I'm going to say thank you.
That sounds like all the right reasons to me, and that's exactly how it works. And it's we talk about this all the time in the tips section of our show. And it's about being a good hang. That's as important as being qualified. It's like it's a real cose walk.
Because the industry's a lifestyle.
Right? I mean, come on. You've worked with so many bands. Imagine Dragons, Sunbolt. Let me ask you, what is the criteria? And those I still have questions for, particularly Sunvolt. I enjoy them a great deal. One of those bands that just didn't get the respect they deserved. Very unique lane for music. I don't even know how you would classify them. I think that's what made it hard for the listening public to know what to do with them. Like Jellyfish. There's a few bands like that. A little hard to pin down, but goddamn exciting and good bands. Criteria. What do you use to pick your jobs? Again, you've had such a varied history here. 5 years with the Black Keys, worked with so many, Dr. John, so many fun bands, so much, it just goes on and on. Ryan Adams, how do you pick what you're going to do next?
Who's got money?
The check clears, right? With that, totally.
For most part, you always hope, you always wish to work with artists, like working with when I worked with Lucinda Williams, that was definitely a bucket list. Like when I got that one, that was somebody I really wanted to work with. And there's a lot of artists out, and I think you always hope to work for somebody whose music you like and that you're a fan of. But at the same time, I would rather. I say this all the time: is I would rather work for somebody whose music I hate, who are good people, than to work for somebody whose music I love and have them not be good people and then lose that music from my life, because I've worked with a few people that seem like horrible human beings, or were rough tours, and then I love their music, but I just can't listen to that music anymore, because it reminds me of like the trouble that I went through, the bad times. So, you always hope that you work with. I've been lucky to work with a lot of artists who I do appreciate their music and I'm fans of, and have a lot of history behind them. But I just get lucky, and if I'm looking, I rarely say no to something if it's interesting and if it's paying the bills,
Well, that had to be the case with Sunvolt, because Sunvolt, again, a little known band, and a couple of their compositions. There was one called Drown that is like so good, dude.
That first record that they did, right? When they were living in, Jay was living in New Orleans. The rest of the guy, he was from St. Louis, and the rest of the band were friends of mine from Minneapolis. And so Jay was driving that New Orleans to me, and you can hear it if you listen to that record. You can hear the traveling, like the songs are all about that drive from New Orleans to Minneapolis, and cool. Sitting in the car and driving, and talking about that, like that whole thing is like resonates with me. It's great. In fact, I would say that when I did Sunvolt, that was probably one of the biggest bands I worked for at the time. Like they'd just come off. I think they were on their second or third record at that point. But that was the first, and we were opening for Mellencamp. And that was 20 years ago. And I actually just saw Jay last summer. He played in a small town, the Jay Farrar, and with Sunvolt. And I hung out with him for the first time like last year, and in like 20 years, and got to catch up with him.
Wow, that's great. I highly recommend them to folks if they don't know who Sunvolt is. They're a lot of fun, and one hell of a band, and great players, and great craftsmen. And there's one of those bands that just should have gotten more play, and they're a little challenging musically in the sense of they don't hold a lane, and that makes them fun for me and exciting. So check these guys out. Imagine Dragons. This is a band that is it's a touring act for Sound Image, one of our artists, and an extraordinary. These guys, man, like talk about the kind of the new school, using a lot of the new technology, but kind of taking on the old rock and roll ethos. They play big shows. They bring it. They're going to do they really have developed a fan base, and they play a lot. Yeah. These guys get around. What was it like working with these kids? I mean, this is a really industrious bunch of guys.
Yeah, they were good guys. They're hard workers. They really put a lot into it, for sure.
Yeah, fantastic bunch of guys.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're out touring and you got a free time? I'm always curious about like how people spend their free time. I know we've all had it.
He's a tour manager. What free time?
Well, that's a good point. But now he's got a phone and a laptop.
Yeah, true. The pagers.
Dip into a copy shop and he can work shit out.
I decided a few years ago, like I was, when I have a day off, I can afford to take a day off. So like that was a hard thing for me to do. But I was like, because there's always work to do when you're a tour manager. There's always accounting. There's always something to do, advancing. And a few years ago, my friends Adrian Biondo and Wendy Wilson, they would drag me out on days off and say, look, at least walk around the city a little bit, grab a meal. So for me, it's like I enjoy food, so I like to try local restaurants, have a decent meal. I like a pub or a drink with my crew and band, like just get to know everybody and just enjoy the wherever we are, walking through the cities or wherever we are. I mean, I love especially in Europe when you have drive days, and now in the U.S. we have a lot of drive days. It's not like the old days where we'd always just go to the next city, but now we got to be creative and with mileage, and we can only drive 600 miles at a time. So if we do a lot of breaks in small cities, and that's one of my favorite things is to plan days off in like Mobile, Alabama, or some small town in Europe, and like San Sebastian or some places like that, just small towns that you wouldn't get to maybe to do a show, but you can have a day off there and that's some of my favorite stuff to do is just explore cities that we're in and enjoy the culture, the food, etc.
Well, you mentioned some Sanders about some of those places are like heaven spots. I totally get it, and that's kind of one of the neat parts about being a touring guy is you get to see a lot of the world.
Or you don't. I mean, like how many times have you blown?
It's kind of why I asked.
Yeah, you blow through. I mean, I think I was in Paris 3 times before I actually saw Paris.
Yeah, but that was there was probably something about your head where you just couldn't. You know what I mean? You were I was just in a gig or something
you
about
fly in, you get your work done, you get the fuck out.
Sometimes it is the schedule.
Yeah,
but there's always
a lot of times it is.
Yeah.
But I think when you can find that time, I mean, I think it's always a lot of the times it's hard to get out, but I think when you can to make that time to be able to do that, to see, even if it's walking around, like I haven't been up in the Eiffel Tower, but I've at least walked under it and seen it across town.
Right.
I actually went a few years ago. I was with Empire of the Sun, and everybody went. They do the blinking late at night, the blinking lights, and we on the way out of town, we pulled over for 10 minutes at the side of the road and sat at a square and watched. It was like 10 minutes, but I can guarantee you it's 10 minutes that everybody remembered of just sitting there watching the Eiffel Tower blink on and off and people taking pictures and got back in the bus and moved on, but it's those little moments like that, I think, is the reason we all, do it.
Yeah. Now there's some travel. It takes
I mean, walking the streets, smelling the food and the restaurants, and just getting a sense of your surroundings.
So is important to human growth is to see other people's cultures, see other people as people, and that they live there's similarities or
get mugged in other countries.
Oh God, you haven't lived.
You haven't lived till you've been mugged in Brazil.
Crepes with hazelnut, with Nutella.
There you go.
That sounds good.
Right. I see. I get what you're saying. I'm totally
a Vegemite sandwich.
An adventurous eater, it certainly helps.
Absolutely. No, that's what life is all about as far as I'm concerned. It's like I want to eat. I've had the calf brain in Paris.
Oh my God.
The songbird in Portugal.
Let me tell you, my friend, my handler over in Europe, I said,
what did you say, you've eaten the horse or not? If you've had catering in France or Germany, you've eaten the horse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm saying I've done the horse, I just haven't done the brain.
My thing was I had to have a McDonald's and a Starbucks within walking distance of my hotel, or I was going to die. That's it.
They are doing their best to carpet the world with one of those within walking distance of everything. So just give them a second.
Big Mac or scorpions on a stick.
We were talking about Dan earlier. The Great Black Keys. You've spent 5 years with them, so I wanted to reach out to you about it. This was and that was a pretty pivotal time in their career. This is 2010 to 15, and they were blowing up they're like crazy. This is 2 guys holding down a stage for 30,000 people, like getting all kinds of crazy press, and like anybody in their mother. And then the main cat, it starts producing and throwing out all this crazy, this must have been
like, who are you?
Whirlwind for you in that time.
Yeah, that was good. When I got it, I had been doing Lucinda Williams for about 10 years, and when I called,
artist.
they were. I mean, I knew who they were, but they were a small band. They were hoping to sell out first, like clubs like First Avenue, 2 nights at First Avenue. Yeah, that was their big thing. The record was coming out. They thought maybe they'd be, top 30. They or top 4. I think the highest they got was number 14 before, and sold like 35,000 records. I think the first week, and it came out, and we were like. The record came out and we were like, we were sold out at all the shows. We were doing like clubs and small theaters. So everything was sold out right away. And then all of a sudden, every time we'd make a prediction, it was we were like number 3 after Glee and the Rolling Stones, Let It Bleed record, I think it was.
That's huge.
And they sold like 70,000 records instead of 35 records. And then it was just everything they did, first arena tour was in Canada because we figured we did, nobody's going to know if we bomb because it's Canada. Nobody will know.
Canadians will
sold
know.
out within hours. Yeah, but they don't care. Nobody's talking to the Canadians in the U.S. Nobody knows there's a country north of us.
Bernie is Canadian.
I'm Canadian, but you're absolutely right.
But
we'll apologize. We'll apologize for them.
I lived in Minnesota, and people
That's
would be
almost
like,
Canadian.
be like, how can you live up there? It's so cold. I go, you realize there's a whole country north of us that survives just fine, right? Like, They don't have a Florida. They don't have. They don't have a desert. They like deal with winter a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
And they're just fine.
Yeah. Thanks to the sealskins and the whale blubber.
Shout out to Texas, and their power always stays on in the gnarliest winters ever.
Yeah.
And they don't have blackouts.
Exactly.
So, that's a really strong example of country doing it right.
Can do.
Good people, and Bernie's right here to prove it. But you're not wrong. The point that you made, I routinely tried to battle with him and argue about that, more or less,
Yeah.
Totally. Really count.
Yeah.
And let's
Celine Dion, Rush,
No, that was an accident.
Alanis Morissette, Shania Twain. We got nothing going on up there.
Fire. I'm just
Brian Adams,
Loverboy. I don't even talk about it anymore.
Triumph.
Just started with maple syrup. I don't know.
You always
Rush.
get ugly when we.
I said Rush, but I'll say Rush again. Rush. You
mentioned they
Now we have
have.
to say Bare Naked Ladies.
Bare Naked Ladies.
I remember when they were called the Bare Naked Lady Wrestlers, and they were kind of like a punk band way early in their days. That was a very different thing. I noticed you did this thing, and you got to explain it to me. This is curiosity. I'm intellectually curious about this. You're at South by Southwest. I don't remember the year here, but it was you were doing Usher and Afghan wigs somehow.
It was one of the highlights of my career.
Explain that.
I got a call from Scotty Walter, who is the Afghan Wigs tour manager for years, and who's a promoter rep in Kentucky now, and Gus Brandt from the Foo Fighters gave me a call and said, like, and I had known Greg Dooley from the Afghan Wigs a little bit, so he because he was a Lucinda fan, and he had come to a couple of shows, and they called me up and said, hey, this is top secret, but Fader wants to do this special show that they asked Usher to do this show, and they said he could have any band that he wanted backing him, and he chose the Afghan Wigs of all bands, and they had just done their first reunion, but it kind of kicked out their guitar player, so they were going to hang it up because it was just the bass player and the singer that were kind of left, and they were gonna kind of hang it up, and they said, well, we'll do this one show, just because it's an interesting thing to do, and then I literally, it was a week before South by Southwest. I had to find a rehearsal space. I had to find audio gear for South by Southwest. So I rented out the Bass Concert Center Theater at the University of Texas. Somehow that was free. They let us use that.
Crazy.
Plus, we had to have obviously top secret security because it was Usher, so we didn't let anybody know and they didn't want anybody to know about it. It was announced like 2:00 in the afternoon the day of the show, so there was nobody that knew about it.
Wow.
I had to get gear brought in from Dallas and with Tex because there was nothing around getting closer. But we pulled it off, and we did the show, and it was Howard Erlinger was the production manager for it.
Rush.
It was a great day all around. It was one of the highlights of my career.
He was being a smartass, but Rush affiliation there, and pointing back to the Canadians' purpose.
I got four Rushes.
You stuck a nail there, and you got him, buddy.
Howard's a great guy, though. I've worked with him many times.
That sounds like a really. Who would have thought Usher would have dug so deep down? Now that is a pull.
Yeah.
That is a strange pull.
It is, but it works if you know Dooley. I mean, a lot of a lot of the later Afghan Wigs records were kind of R&B influenced and with his weird stylings, but
I didn't know that actually. I think of him as one way. I think of him as original Afghan Wigs. Afghan Wigs. Dinosaur Jr. vibe.
They kind of had that, but then Dooley got into experimenting and was into the R&B thing, and we had some special guests on it too. That was one of the highlights of my career. That was one of the hardest and most fun shows I've ever done.
Well, I was going to ask your favorite moment in the history, but I think that's a pretty hard one to pass up. And plus, you already told us the Dr. John thing, so it's like, it's like,
You're reaching now.
Asked and answered pretty much. But you had some pretty great moments, buddy, and it does speak to you, the time on the job and the respect that is, I think, pretty much universal across the industry when it comes to when your name rings out. I got to ask you, in that vein, and being a man that's seen and done, and put a lot of good time on the road, what kind of advice? There's a bunch of youngsters in the game, and they're very different than we were when we were coming up, and in many ways probably superior and better with less baggage. They're coming a little different. And what kind of advice would you have for kids coming up in the game, in modern day rock and roll?
Well, first off, a couple things. One thing is check out Tour Management 101, which is something I've done with my tour management friends, Adrian Biondo, who's out with Willie Nelson right now, and that drew Henry Bardot, who I think a lot of us know is Tyler, the Creator, and a lot of Mark Clark, Doug Wilson, Mary Jo Kotska, Dave 51 Norman. We during the pandemic we did I think 60 or 70 classes. We were doing 2 a week for a while. For the first year, I think we did 2 a week, just teaching lessons on tour management. So if you can, teaching all aspects of tour management and then crew, and from the basics to getting into lighting and rigging and that kind of stuff in small ways, and it's all on YouTube. So I would recommend that. The other thing too is go to school, study hard, and then go do something else.
I like that one.
But no, I think you just get in there and show, become a runner, work at a production company, work with you guys, work in the warehouse, whatever you do, and you'll get to where you want to go, but just learn everything you can.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. That is great advice from a man that's seen and done. We wish you much luck. First of all, reach out to this. That is what a wealth of information to have. What'd you say? Around 50, 60 episodes?
I think so. We haven't counted in a while. We've kind of retired it for a little bit. We're planning on doing some stuff, to upgrade it a little bit, but yeah, I think there's at least 60 episodes of it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So if they punched in Tour Manager 101, you'd come up on this content.
Yeah.
That is the coolest thing about YouTube and that's why I do it live. One way or another, it's going out there and it's going to be out there, and I own it. Exactly. And 60 episodes from some of the folks that you mentioned and yourself offering their advice on that subject. My God, I love that. That part about the internet is cool.
He's an influencer.
We interviewed everybody we interview everybody from Ed, the singer for Collective Soul, to LDs, to we had a spectrum of a lot of different people over the course of production managers, a lot of women in touring. We just kind of cover a lot of ground for sure. So anybody that's interested in it, you can get a lot of information on what we do, and each episode is 90 minutes to 2 hours. So
Wow, that's
a lot of time.
That is a lot of content.
Yeah.
No, and those are important subjects. The subjects he's named, we've had as topics, women in the industry, as the show ourselves, and these are important subjects, and the ones you mentioned. And what a huge depository of this is not how this all started. There was a time when we cover advancing into shows and settlements and all that stuff too. So I've even used it as a reference to when after the pandemic, when I was going back to work and going God, I haven't done a settlement in 2 years. I better study. And I've gone back to it, and we give sheets and, on instructions on how to do it. And it was fun to do, but it's also kind of giving back to the industry a little bit too. That is
Fantastic.
very kind, and it sounds like a place that anybody's curious in Term Manager 101. And really, being a term manager is kind of, if you're listening in the beginning, it's kind of knowing the whole job. And so I can imagine there's a wealth of information in there. And so hats off to you for that. Listen, man, you mentioned that you got some tricky days ahead. Walk tall, my brother. Seriously.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
We hope to see you out here doing what you do best. We derive as men a lot of purpose from what we do, a lot of sense of ourselves and who we are and what we do, and you are one of the best. And I don't say that lightly, brother. I brought you on here for a reason.
Appreciate that.
So thank you for spending time with us. We wish you all the best and
many blessings,
continued
man.
happy health. And again, that thing when I mentioned, if there's anything we can do, please, we're a phone call away. We're
Appreciate that.
just
Thank you.
reach out, and we will be there for you. Promise you that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, my friend. Thank you for coming and sharing your experiences with us and your time.
you.
And
My
thank you
pleasure.
for your abundant patience. You were a
Absolutely,
trooper
not
in
a
this
problem.
thing. Too cool. All right, my friend. Take care of yourself. Have a great night.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, guys, we're so lucky we get these people on. I am lucky that I get to be surrounded by talented people like you tonight. I want to send a special shout out, and I mean this from my heart, man. What we do here on this side is a little tricky, but it's doable because we're pretty much us, and so we just talk and be us. But on the other side of the cameras, and there's 3 of them, I think, and there's TVs all over, and RF, and cables and switchers and mixing consoles, and we just threw him our Devo ball. Zachary Watkins back there has been kicking ass and fully trying to be the octopus, which is an acquired thing. Our octopus is
You're
missing.
doing great, bud.
He's killed
Fucking
it,
killing it.
and we love him, and we need him to know it. So thank you for all your support and help tonight. Thank you, audience, for coming and tuning us in. I know there's 7 of you or 700. We appreciate what you coming in and checking us out, especially the folks that always check in on the different and the comments board. You guys kind of have your own thing to say. Special shout out to Susie Kearney. I love her. She's out doing her thing. We miss her. We hope she's doing well. She's a good girl. I want to say I love my girl, Jackie Canterbury. Everybody knows that. I'm just going to double down on it. Charlie Shriki,
You're
the
going to
man.
talk right into the mic
The
to do
mission.
that.
Hey, baby.
And
Baby.
I
He
hope
really
you're having a
loves
good
you.
night. Go to bed. It's
Baby.
4 o'clock in Britain right now. And we love you guys. All of them from Tony to Jimmy to
Baby.
we got a bunch of guys that I can do Barry White all night. Don't even get into this. All right, baby. All right, you guys. Listen, we're gonna do this next week. We got the great Jules Cromiglia. This guy, audio all around badass. Just had a health thing himself. We're men of a certain age, but we may be having some little health things going on. Julius is doing better. Happy to say he's gonna come on and tell us about the whole history. This guy knows where all the bodies are buried. He's a sweetheart of a man. He just survived a little health thing, and we'll talk about that. It's a thing of men of a certain age. Brian, it's your turn next. You're coming up.
Don't fucking taint him like that. Vern, you're gonna be
I didn't
timeless
do
forever. I love you.
The
Canadian.
the gray
Canadian.
hair
It's
did
the
it.
maple syrup.
Got maple
Fine.
syrup in my blood, man.
Yeah, you do have a special thing going on, that little bit of a glow. Hey, we're going to do this next week. Come and tune in with us. We appreciate that you come out and see us. Jules Carmiglia next week. Until then, behave, be kind, be well. You know what to do. See you. Bye. Good night.
Bye. Baby.
It just happened. Is that